Hi, in this video I'll be going over the buttons and functions in this tool I made for my own workflow with hair cards inside of Maya for game res, mostly characters. I think you could use it for other things if you choose so. I'll start my demonstration by making a plane with plenty of subdivision and just go over the buttons. First thing, this script works with a dedicated UV set, so you have to plug some sort of UV set into here. So right now it's set on alpha, and if I'm going to be trying to do anything, it would give me an error, right? There we go, that's the proper error. No matching UV set. And if I click the grab, we'll be grabbing that map number 1. What I'll do, I'll just give it a proper, well, you know what, I'll do it later. So I'll just go quickly over the buttons. The tip would select our edge loop that's at the tip of the geo. Root would do the same on the other side. Middle would grab our absolute middle. Once I click on this checkbox, I can control what part of the mesh I want to select. Length would select those two that are going to the length of it, because we have an even number of edge loops that are going to its length. If I add another edge loop, it is going to select that one. It's easier to see maybe. Next button is the edge flow. So how does it work? So if I mess something up and it's jagged and no fun anymore, you would say unworkable, we can smooth it out and make it more like what we want for hair cards, at least, and just give us a more even distribution of polys across the surface. If we mess it up on those perpendicular, no, I don't think these are perpendicular, but as you're gonna notice right now, this kind of deformation at the tips and the roots is not going to be fixed by it. It's gonna try to accommodate, gonna go around it and fix everything to it. If we click on this length edge loops activated checkbox, it's gonna go over these guys as well. So it's gonna go over those lengthwise edge loops. And the way it goes, it just goes edge loop by edge loop and applies, what was it? Applies, yeah, added edge flow. That's what it does, just one by one. Next, we can give our mesh a pivot point. It is going to be set to around our root. So the first row of faces is gonna inherit their normal and their orientation, which is very, very useful, at least for me. Next button we would have to use with some sort of mesh. I have a black and white head here that we can use. Just make it bigger, put it over here. So in order for it to work with a hair cap, or just to be able to snap it to another mesh, we have to select it here. I've written down the proper naming convention right here, but you can change it. You can grab it directly from the geo, and I'm sure you'll figure out how to do that. And it's gonna snap our pivot point to our surface. Very simple operation. So snap pivot, and each one of those functions is gonna be working with multiple objects. So obviously tips, and we can start manipulating and changing them, and not being too afraid of our topology, which is quite nice. Next, and yeah, of course, pivot. Most things in here are going to be, oh yeah, I didn't go over the transform. So transform just gonna bring us back to our transform nodes. It's very useful when you have a bunch of tips selected and then you want to deselect maybe an object and you can't. So this would help with that. Length is useful for inflating objects, just giving them some width so they're not disappearing on a glancing angle. We can always reconstruct pivot and snap it again. We can fix our roots even for multiple objects. We can flatten them, and I don't know if we'll be able to have any transparency. Oh yeah, so yeah, we can flatten them or do the opposite, I suppose. Yeah, flatten them in this way. Oh yeah, we will have to go individually for that kind of flatten. Or let's see, object. Yeah, maybe. Yeah, we can do this as well. This is nice actually. And then we can use our edge flow to kind of match everything else to that transformation. Next thing I want to show you is, whoops, yes. Next thing I want to show you is the other snap. So we have snap pivot and we have just snap. What does that mean, you ask? So this is what it's gonna do. It's just gonna shrink wrap it, basically. So there's one quirk with it. It's gonna also transfer your normals, which we don't necessarily want. It is fixable through the mesh display menu, and they're set to face somewhere here. And soften edge. I might just code it, just like into the, just automate it into the code at some point. So this might be useful in case you want your mesh to follow the curvature of the head or the body or whatever you're snapping it to. And as always, reconstruct and snap pivot. Next thing, and I think maybe one of the biggest premises besides the pivot point operation, is the ability to fill our... I'll just click it. So basically what it gives us the ability to fill English is definitely not my first language, to fill the in-betweens of our geo. So let's say you can go as many as you want, right? So let's say I have this guy over here, and then maybe another one somewhere here, and we can snap it and give it a little bit of a rotation. I don't know what I'm doing at the moment. I'm just like a crazy mohawk. So if you select them by their order, you can fill their in-betweens. And if that's my personal workflow with this, because the script would return a selection of all those newly created geo. I can group those, so I have them somewhere in here, and then I'm remained with my previously selected geo. And why am I doing this? I can go after the fact, because they're all blend shaped together right now, until you kill the history, and I can start like deforming them and just changing them after the fact. I could introduce, whoops, I get confused with those icons. I could introduce some random translation over here. So this slider, when not being controlled by this middle point, or while not controlling that middle point, this slider would be controlling the amount of random translations, and those three checkboxes right under it, obviously just tell it in which axis to translate it. So I can check which is which through here, but these are local, right? So X is gonna move left and right, and you can see it here, right? Y is gonna take it up and down, and Z backward and forward. So in this case, I guess X would be the best, and we still retain our blend shapes, because blend shapes don't have to do with our transform nodes. And we can still use our edge flow, we can do all the other things that are non-destructive. And yeah, each one of those keyframe or key shapes would be controlling and adjusting them. So you can do this until you're satisfied, moving them around. around, giving them some sort of rotation, translation. It's up to you. Continue modeling and improving the shape and see the results happen live, which is very nice. All right, next, what else can we do with this? So we filled, and of course, once we, let me just remove this, we can have the same thing happen. Just a sec. Yeah, we can have the same thing. We can have the same thing happen with the random transforms already kind of applied when we click fill. Oh yeah, and if you click fill on just one object, it's just gonna go around it. And if I would have this on 0, it would be just duplicated 5 times in the same place. So obviously I want to give it some maybe extra randomness, just so I get something that's workable. It's not as useful as the other function, I don't think, but yeah, you can do something like this. So you can. So there are some limitations with this workflow. Let's say that our hair cards are completely opposing each other, and I want to fill the in-betweens. It is going to give me some weird. Let's just remove all of our randomness. So you see what it's doing. It's looking for the shortest way to go from one side to the other. Now you can use it to your advantage, right? So basically, if I put it here, I think it would go from the other side. Yeah, it would. So you can still use it to your advantage, and you can still, right? You can still control those guys. And then you can just do this. So you can have something like that. I'm not sure. I'm not sure what it's gonna be used for, but you see my point. I think for certain hairstyles, this workflow is fairly fast. Let's go to a textured view. Get our UVs in order, and let's assign some other material here. So I think this one is our hair. Like, we really don't care. All right, so let me, whoops. So usually the way I work with alphas, just like make it huge. The way I work with alphas, I keep, yeah, don't let this kind of stuff happen. If you're working with this kind of workflow that I'm suggesting here, and this this kind of stuff, I keep them right in the middle of my first row of faces, because that's where my pivot's gonna be, and that's how I'm snapping everything to everything else. So let's look at it. It looks alright to me. So what happens if we decide to go in? I'm not even gonna do it like this. If we decide to go in, and start erasing some edge loops. And by the way, let's say you have like 1 million hairs. Let's just make a bunch of hairs. It's not exactly 1 million, but you get my point. And we want to go in and maybe erase this. So with this kind of selection, automation, we can. And then we can go in and for all of them just adjust the edge flow, which is actually pretty nice. Oh yeah, and of course, a good idea would be to kill history before you do any distractive kind of manipulation on them, right? Otherwise, those blend shapes are gonna do something strange and not very flattering to our geo. So, what happens if I decide to go in and basically, whoops, why am I doing it like this? And basically remove like chunks of my geo. So at the moment, it doesn't look that bad actually, but at the moment we have all this empty space, right? And I'm just using one UV set, aren't we? And we want to have it more uniform, right? So you have unfold inner, which would try to go in and accommodate for that, for whatever you have done to your geo. It would try to go in, and it would keep your, let's make it a little bit more visible. So it's gonna keep your border straight unless you remove this checkbox, and each and every one of the buttons here has a tooltip attached to it. And yeah, this might give us some trouble, but sometimes, especially with the diffuse map, you just want to let it do its thing, but not in this situation. And as you can see, it gives us a nice enough result. So when you combine this with this, most of the time you would get fairly even distribution. It's not too bad. So we went over all this. UV. So what would this do? Once my UV is active and I decide to generate more hair cards, it's gonna go over my currently active hair cap or something geo that it is being attached to, and it's gonna transfer its UVs and just, yeah, it's not gonna look very good right now because we don't have it set up properly. And what do I mean by setting it up properly? I like to work with it this way. I have a separate UV set, so let me copy this one, and usually I call it alpha, and this UV set would be responsible for my alphas and for just working with my script, because the script needs some way to figure out what's up and what's down, what's a root and what's a tip. So as long as you keep at least on one UV set all of your tips on the top and all of your roots, or sorry, all of your tips at the bottom and all of your roots at the top, it should work just fine. And this kind of workflow also gives you the ability to just have more control over what you do with your diffuse map. You can start transferring your UVs from your underlaying mesh, which at the moment is not very friendly, as you can see, for transferring UVs from. But if you just create a simple hair cap, like a simple kind of helmet shape that has uniform UVs on it, you can start transferring your UVs for your diffuse and have your hairs match into your underlaying texture, which is really nice to have. What else can I show you here? Yes, let's say I have, again, a bunch of hairs, and we can snap all those hairs to our head. And some of them, oh yeah, and I accidentally, let's remove this thing. Yeah, as long as this thing is active, it's gonna grab your UVs from the head. And it was my workflow at my previous job, where I was constantly transferring UVs from the hair cap. I don't need it as much anymore, so I just keep it off. So snap that pivot. So let's say we went in here, we went to our alpha UV. Just grab all of them and put them on alpha. This thing is nice. So I went in here, or in here, and I decided to give it a different alpha. Right. I can batch transfer those UVs now. So I can, I don't remember if it's the last one or the first one. I think it's supposed to be the last one. So let's say I have all these guys selected. I can use this slider. This is my main kind of slider for most things that this tool can do that is slider related. So random transform select is going to randomly select a transform node from all these transform nodes. It is a little bit cryptic lingo there, but that's the proper name. So I randomly selected them, and I think if I add this one last, I should be able to copy those UVs to all those hairs that I have here, which is very nice. So you have batch transfer UV, and it's gonna work on whatever UV set you're on. So it's independent of this. And yeah, I think if this is selected, it's just gonna transfer the UVs from the hair cap to all of them. So that's another thing you can do with it. Do I have anything else to show that's interesting? Actual snap, pivot, snap. Oh yeah, there is some more actually. So if I grab my root, let's put it over here, I can snap my root to the surface, and yeah, this is just my transfer attribute, so it might give you some trouble, but sometimes it works alright. And then you can go to your to your transform, you can kill your history, you can give it a proper pivot and set it back into place. And I think it still should be, it still should be connected. That's what's nice about those blend shapes. They remain connected as long as you don't mess with these guys, as long as you don't kill their history over here. So that's about it. Oh, well, you know what? Almost about it. I'll show you just one more thing. So if I'm gonna go in and just grab one of those hairstyles that has been already merged, right? It's been already merged into one geo, and I decide to separate it, I can reconstruct all of my pivot points. Like I've shown you before that it can be done. I just want to show you on a full hairstyle and just the meaning of being able to do that. And I can just start. Whoops. Oh yeah, and of course I had my pivot point set to the middle, set to the center of the object. So it is quite important to have your pivot point at the origin. And then if I go to my hairs, I should be able to reconstruct my pivot points. It might take a while because there's so many of them, right? And we're gonna be using our alpha, and I can start rotating them. I can start filling in the blank kind of spots where we didn't reach. Oh, I forgot to grab these guys. I can start making them huge. Oh, and I didn't I didn't reconstruct the pivots for those guys on the bottom there, so I'll just do it again. Yeah, you can start making it huge and weird looking. You can start let's just grab these two guys and just fill it with another one, right? Or there's a bunch of stuff you can do with this that is very, very useful. Yeah, this kind of stuff. And then you can bring it back. You can either write down the initial rotation of your mesh, or maybe there's a way to automate it. It's not that hard, but usually I just eyeball it. You should be able as an artist to eyeball something like the general rotation of your hair. And I'm just rotating it on one axis, right? And you can start yourself on a habit of just, I have like a specialized kind of merge that doesn't keep all of those transform nodes that Maya, when you merge with Maya, it just keeps all those transform nodes. So this way, there we go, F4. This way you can have all of your, yeah, I didn't really, I didn't really rotate it properly. But this way you can have your hair just exported as an OBJ, and you can still work on it after the fact. So you can bring in geo as long as your geo has, as long as your, let me just separate it again. As long as your geo is quad and your tips of your geo have only 2 neighbors, which means it's not triangulated. So this vertex is going to only have 2 neighbors, unlike this one that has 1, 2, 3 neighbors. So as long as you have that going on, you can even, I don't know, it's just like, merge. Can I? Yeah. So, whoops. So even if you have something like this, I should be able to still select. I don't know how it's gonna, yeah, even the middle works. So even with this kind of situation where it's kind of messed up, right, you can still work with the script. It's gonna give you other problems like this thing over here. I don't even know if the unfold is really gonna do a good job with this. But yeah, it's quite workable. So it helped me quite a lot with my workflow, just making it faster with hair, and yeah, I hope it does the same for you, and good luck.